Welcome to the Armed and Ready podcast. I am your host, Jason Wood, the VA loan guy. We have a really exciting episode lined up for you, so come check it out. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Armed and Ready podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wood, the VA loan guy. And today we have Army Special Forces veteran Jared Bose with us. We're super excited to have him on the show. So Jared, thanks so much for being on today, brother.
Thanks for having me, Jason. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, that's great, man. So Special Forces, that's obviously, the thing a lot of people aspire to be into in the military. Special Forces or a pilot, right? Those are kind of the two like glamorous type things. So tell us a little bit about your path. Like, how did you end up joining the military or selecting the Army? Like, what was going on in your mind at that time?
So I was in high school, kind of not really sure of what I wanted to do. And the college route initially just didn't really entice me. So I was like looking in the military, and I even looked at like ROTC a little bit. I like toured maybe one school and like kind of talked to the ROTC liaison there. And then I was like, I don't know if I really want to do that. So kind of like, I was like, well, I don't want to be in the regular Army. So I looked, or regular military. So I started looking up like special operations units, requirements, kind of just doing my research.
What do you find when you're doing that research? Do you find like helpful stuff to like prepare you to get there?
I think for the most part, I was kind of naive then and kind of just looking at like, oh, what do they do? Like what's because every special operations unit's got a different mission. So I kind of like looked into those, and some of them have age requirements too. Like I was 18 going in. So I was kind of tossed up on like a few things, and then I honed in on Ranger Regiment and kind of decided that's what I wanted to do. Because I heard they get to do a lot of the cool stuff. And so I narrowed my focus onto that and kind of became my goal. And then, went into the recruiters, was able to get a Ranger contract pretty fast. So that was good. And that just kind of guarantees you a spot at the RASP, which is our selection to get in there. And honestly, that's kind of how I went that path. Like I wasn't going to join if I couldn't get like a special operations unit contract or a chance to try.
Nice. And what's, I hear of Ranger School and a lot of guys, and maybe you can explain this better for me, but a Ranger, and then you have like Green Berets, right, in the Army.
Yes.
And like Ranger School, just because you get to go there doesn't mean you actually end up being like you have to get through the school and like pass it and everything, right?
Ranger School is a leadership school. It's kind of like it's a school anyone in the Army can go to, and it makes it a little confusing. To get into Ranger Regiment, like the Special Operations Unit, you have to go through RASP, which is an 8-week selection course. But
okay.
As a caveat of being like in Ranger Regiment, you eventually have to go to Ranger School. So like where Green Berets have it's called SFAS, which is their selection to get into their unit.
Okay.
Rangers have RASP, and then Ranger School is just a school that we'll have to go to eventually. Like I went to it maybe like I had been in for maybe 2 years by the time I went to Ranger School, but I was in Ranger Regiment. So it's a little confusing, but.
So then how long is that school, the Ranger School, before you come out and you're like?
Ranger School is like 62 days if you make it straight through. I recycled the last phase. I had to do it over again because I failed. Like you're graded on your patrols, and I failed that. So I had to redo that.
Nice, man. And so, you became a Ranger. What'd you do? Did you get to go on any interesting deployments? Any scary stuff happen while you were in?
After, I graduated RASP in 2017, and then like around the holidays 2018 2019 I was already on my first deployment. So I showed up to got my platoon, and we went on our first deployment over to the Middle East, and that was like a really good experience situationally. Like just kind of being so new to the unit, you kind of thrown into the fire, and have to learn. And it helps a lot I had like some really, really good leaders above me, and some of them are like my best friends now, and they kind of developed me there. I'd say that was like a great like turning point in my career, was that first deployment. I learned like a lot there, kind of how to be a better Ranger.
Yeah, some nothing like some OJT, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so how long were you in the Middle East?
That deployment, I was only there for 3 months. I actually came back early from that one, like a month early, to go to Ranger School because, like, me and some other new guys in my platoon were competing uh, to like get slots to go, and they sent a handful of us back to go to Ranger School a little bit early.
When you become a ranger, you know how there's different MOSs in the Army, right? Do you
Mm-hmm.
have like kind of a more like defined role in the ranger platoon, like after you go to ranger school, or are you all kind of doing the same type of stuff, or how does that break out?
Um, so I was infantry. Once you pass RASP, you stay doing that job. And Ranger Regiment only has like a certain job that they take.
Okay.
Excuse me. And I was so when you're before you go to Ranger School, when you're in Ranger Regiment, you're essentially like you're either like carrying a litter, you're a rifleman, you're a grenadier, or some guys will be like saw gunners, or you're like a machine gunner, kind of just
Okay.
like lower skill level jobs, and you're carrying a lot of stuff because like the team leader just needs like you as like a tool, and he's developing you. So he's like, hey, you're carrying this thing. And you're like, okay. And then once you get back from Ranger School, uh, you've kind of earned your spot in the platoon at that point, and then
Okay.
you're trusted with a little more leadership. You might be in charge of a few guys, and start looking at becoming like a team leader position. And you're kind of you have a lot more responsibility, and I'd say your life's more stressful just because you have all that responsibility, but you're not getting messed with like being a new guy. So
No, that's good. That's
yeah,
good. So then you go back out on another deployment then after that?
yeah. I went to 3 total deployments.
Okay.
Uh, I went to Afghanistan in 2019 as I was a gun team leader. Um, and then I went to Iraq in, well, it would have been 2020 to 2021. And I was a fire team leader then.
Okay. What does a fire team leader do?
So as a fire team leader, you're in charge of a fire team within a squad. So a squad has at the ideally 2 fire teams, which are like 4 guys, but you're always undermanned. So I had like 2 or 3 guys, and there's 2 fire team leaders, and the other fire team leader had 2 or 3 guys at the whenever we could like flex them between. But you're just in charge, like you're like the one up front. You're in charge of like your dudes, and you know your job. And every squad in a ranger platoon has like a different job when it comes down to like a raid. At least that's how it worked in our platoon. Some platoons like rotate, but we kind of stayed specific. So
Okay.
like within a raid, you'll have a platoon that's going to be on the outside, like watching, roads and whatnot. Then you're gonna have a platoon that's like right up on the compound, like looking in. Then you're gonna have a platoon that's like going in, or sorry, a platoon, a squad like going right in there. And the fire team leader's job is just to like make those things happen, and the squad leader is there to like oversee. So the squad leader's like, hey, I want you guys just go do this, and you're just like, okay, I'm good. I know what I'm doing because I'm a fire team leader, and I have my guys. They're my tools to like get this job done. Sorry,
Nice.
it's kind of like long-winded, but
No, it's good. It's good. I like getting all the detail, right? Because, you know, if you haven't been a
Mhm.
ranger, you don't really know, right? So it's cool to hear that stuff and to learn. And what are some cool like memories, or maybe not even cool, but what are some of the memories that you have from serving? Like, did you guys go through anything that was terrifying, or like anything funny that happened with you and the guys, or anything that comes to mind?
I always remember like the dudes there. Like those are my best friends now, and I don't think I would have been near as good of a ranger as I was without them. And I think having like your buddy there, so it just makes you a better person. So
Yeah.
I think that's like one of the best things that I take away from that. But some like I don't know, funny stories. Like you always just have like internal jokes and just kind of stuff that is funny at the time, but looking back,
Yeah.
it's like not as funny. But I would still laugh at it. Uh, Other like cool, I don't know, man. There's like a bunch of them. There's a lot of funny ones from being a new guy. Like you're always getting messed with. Like you're always getting like tested on your knowledge. They'll be like, oh, what's this? Like, what's the weight of the M4, or like what's the velocity, or be like, what'd you learn at this? Because you always get in classes, like learning new things, and they're always quizzing you on it just so they can like catch you if you're doing something wrong. And I can remember my buddy, I won't give his name because he's still in, but he wasn't allowed to eat like sweets or anything on our first deployment. He was a new guy with me because
Okay.
he was like had to do better like on like a physical test. And he got caught in the chow hall one day, like making a sandwich or something, like
Uh-huh.
something he wasn't supposed to be eating. And it went through, he put it in a toaster and it went and fell through the back and caught on fire. And the chow hall was in a tent. And so this huge fire starts like
Oh my
billowing out of
gosh.
this thing. And the entire like leadership of the platoon who would have like yelled at him for eating this walks in, catches him eating a thing, and the thing's on fire. So
That was a bad day for him.
yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So you were in 5 years, right?
Yeah, just about.
Okay. And tell us what you're up to these days. What are you working on?
So I'm actually a full-time student at College of Charleston.
Nice.
Trying to get my bachelor's in exercise science. I work for a veteran-owned company called Setx USA. We teach shooting and some kind of like CQB, and we're like developing more classes. And then I also have my own like small fitness brand called the Modern Spartan, and we're in the works of like kind of a rebranding, and I might get like absorbed into this Setx USA to kind of take over their like fitness side, just to get some
Cool.
growth and like a partnership. And yeah, and so I'm just traveling, like teaching shooting and then doing school.
So when you're teaching shooting, is that like the general public can sign up and take a shooting class, or are you guys going to like law enforcement, or who do you guys teach?
It's both. We can teach, we teach a lot, primarily civilians, like people who just want to shoot, just they like enjoy shooting and want some kind of formal instruction. We teach law enforcement. We'll even do like teaching actors, you know, if they got a role.
Oh, that's cool.
And we'll teach even some like military units as well.
Is it expensive to go to these, these courses you guys put on?
The typical like rifle, like the base level like classes are like $250
Oh, okay.
for like a 4-hour block of instruction, and then but they're available in bundles for like discounts.
Do people bring their own weapons, or do you guys supply, or how does that work?
They bring their own, and they
Okay.
bring their own ammunition. For the like the close quarters training classes, we use simulation rounds, so we provide those obviously, but
Yeah.
yeah, they got to bring all their own stuff.
That's really cool. When are you guys coming down to San Diego?
There's actually a class in Peru, California. I'm not sure where that is.
Huh. I don't know where that is either, actually. Sounds like it's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I bet it is. I'm not sure who even teaches out there, but we have it all over the U.S. So I'm the lead here for South Carolina.
Nice. So, tell us a little bit about the fitness, like the modern Spartan. So, are you kind of pulling like training and stuff that you learned while you're in service, and adapting that to your curriculum? Is it all based off that? Tell me a little bit about it.
So I kind of like honed in on my passion for fitness while I was in, because obviously you have to maintain a certain level of like performance to be able to like do the job.
Right.
And kind of like learning that, not like gaining all that knowledge, because we had some really good strength coaches that worked for us, and kind of asked them a lot of questions, and kind of just like want them to be a good leader. Like for my guys, I didn't want my guys to like look at me and think that they can like outperform me. So I was like, I have to be better than the dudes below me, but also like set an example, because that's how my leaders were for me. Like they were all like physical studs. So I was like, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
And I kind of like built on that. And then I actually wrote like the primary program that I sell while I was on deployment. And it was just kind of like, it was like a mix of like functional training with kind of like bodybuilding type stuff. And now I just kind of focus on like the bodybuilding type deal, because I don't have to be as like functional. But it definitely stemmed from my time in and my like desire to be a well-rounded like athlete, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. So what does like a typical workout look like in your program?
Um, the one I call the program like part function, part looking good. Um, and it's got,
That's always the goal, right?
yeah, 'cause, yeah, you want to like perform, but you also want to look good at the beach. Uh,
Totally.
it's got it's split between upper body and lower body days, and like a typical upper body days, you're gonna do some kind of um, pushing movement as like a compound lift, like maybe a bench press or a shoulder press mixed with a pulling movement. So if you're doing like a horizontal pushing movement, like a bench press, you'll be doing a vertical pulling, like a pull ups or a heavy lat pull down. And then there's like some conditioning built into them. So you might like do those things for time, or have to do like sprints in between, or um, rowing machine or something like that.
Gotcha. Keep the
Yeah,
heart rate up.
yeah, that was the big goal of it.
Yeah. Yeah. What have you learned, as you've built out like this, exercise, diet, and just your experience from when you were serving and going through that, like what's something that kind of stands out to you that you learned through all of this that was kind of like an aha?
Something that works for you might not work for everybody else, um, but there's ways to like tailor things to you. Like some people might, I don't know, they might not respond as well to like high volume stuff, and they're just like not, or they don't enjoy it. And I think like doing something that you enjoy, but also like having some kind of uh, motive behind it is
Right.
something important too. Like if you don't enjoy, like if you're going to be in a special operations unit, you should obviously be able to perform and like be a functional athlete. But if you're a civilian and you don't enjoy functional training, like you don't have to do it. And then like another thing I think I just learned a lot about like writing workouts, because there's different ways to write for like different goals. So like
Hmm.
I that's why I tried to branch away from the functional stuff, because I used to like that's what I used to do all the time. That's what I enjoyed, and then I slowly like wanted to do more like bodybuilding type workouts, which are it's completely different like type of thing. Like you're focusing on muscles as opposed to like strength and conditioning and
Right.
like speed and endurance. Like you're kind of just focusing on like building yourself. So it's just I learned just like a lot about fitness as I've kind of like ran through this program and wrote my own and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure, and I know just, from being a gym rat myself, the nutrition piece of it is so crucial, right?
Oh
I
my
mean,
God. Yeah.
you can work out like a crazy person, but if the nutrition is bad, then you're going to maybe not see any results or
Mm-hmm.
very little, right? But if the nutrition part is spot on, like results happen so much faster. Is that what you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, when I was younger, I mean, I'm still young now, but I could, I just ate like whatever. And I've only recently started like tracking my calories and macronutrients. And you, it's definitely a way to tell, like, am I under eating or am I like overeating consistently? And like, if you just kind of do like a little test day and see like a regular day of eating without tracking anything, and then like track it all, you might see like, oh, I'm like way under, or oh, I'm way over. And I think that's something that people should do, just to kind of get an idea of like what their eating looks like in a day. And that's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. No, I think, tracking what you eat, I mean, it's like anything, right? If you want to get results in an area, you got to track what's happening today so that you
Mm-hmm.
can make those adjustments, right?
Yeah.
Because, if you take on like a training program like you put on, you do it for 30 days, but you didn't have the diet, you may not get results, but you might not know why, right? It
Yeah.
may not be the exercising. It might be you're under eating, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
just not getting enough of what you need to get or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
So it may not be the exercise piece, but that might be the default for people like, oh, this exercise program doesn't work. But that
Yeah.
nutrition piece is the more critical piece. I remember, like my wife and I got really into fitness years ago, and she used to be a fitness competitor and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we had just moved to the San Diego area and didn't know a soul. So for me in my business, it's, there's no paycheck, right? It's 100% commission. So I had to go work my tail off. I was working 80, 90 hours a week. It was insane. So there was no time really for working out, but she was getting really into the fitness stuff. And so we just adjusted her diet for a little bit more protein for me. And I just did that without cheating for like 90 days and no working out, and dropped a ton of weight. And then eventually could shrink down the work hours and add in some exercise. And then, it was crazy to see like the change over time. Right. But that diet was so huge because I really wasn't working out. I dropped like 30 pounds and it was just from food.
It's crazy. When people I see a lot of people like track their weights and stuff. Like they're like, oh, I, have gone up 10 pounds on bench or squat. And it's like, yeah, but are you tracking how much protein you need, or like how many carbohydrates you need? Like you're going to plateau at some point and you're not going to know why.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So what's the plan? What's the BHAG, the big hairy goal? What are you aiming for once you get done with school?
That's like the $1 million question. Hopefully I get, once we do this like partnership with the Setx USA, I have like a vision of whatever we rebrand to. I'll just call it still modern Spartan for like continuity, but I don't know, having like supplements and better merchandise and like subscription based like programming and app maybe eventually, and then like coaching as well. I just kind of want to like embody like all the aspects of like fitness and like health, and I have friends who are like athletic trainers, get them involved too, maybe like get a recovery type programming you can get, or recovery coaching. So I kind of just want to develop like a solid, like reputable fitness brand, and then maybe not get too focused on a specific market, but I do love helping people who want to be in like special operations or want to be in the military. I think that's a good group that definitely could use some help, because you're kind of blind going into that before you join.
Yeah, like a preparation curriculum or something for those wanting to get into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Because I bet, and I realize just like I remember when I was in basic training, I was a couple years older than like a lot of the people in basic training who were just straight out of high school. But, all the physical fitness stuff was a complete surprise to most of them. Right. And they hadn't, some were athletes and stuff in school, but even still, it was just a total shock. Right. And so I think, I think what your idea there is really cool, because, if you're looking up, like, how do I get into special forces? You're trying to do research and stuff online before you make that decision. One thing to know is there's a big physical component to making it through all that. I mean, obviously there's a lot of class, a lot of learning, right? But there's a big physical component. I remember I had a good friend from high school who was in Ranger school, and he was carrying the radio pack on a mountain hike. And I think it was a multiple day, pack, and destroyed his ankle. Just kind of slipped the extra weight from the equipment and stuff, and just destroyed his ankle. So then, of course, he had to get it fixed, get it rehabbed, try it again, and like just was never the same. And and actually couldn't end up getting through Ranger school because of that injury, right? And so but that physical component. I mean, when he was sharing with me like just the workouts and the things that they had to do, it's intense. I mean, it is a lot. And if you're not someone who is already geared towards like high endurance, like working out a lot, it's going to be quite a shock. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Those kind of like tougher schools and like selection courses, like you were saying, they like break you down and beat you up. And I think it's about priming your body for that and like how much damage you can handle. So if you're prepped and ready and you can take a lot of like that physical damage, your body's gonna respond a little better to like those freak accidents or like those ankle rolls that you might bounce off it a little better. But injuries are the worst. Get people down.
I know. And it's a mental thing too, right? And that's, I mean, on top of like you're learning stuff, it's physical, like it's a mental game, right? I mean, you got to be mentally strong because like you just said, even in basic training, but especially in the special schools, like the objective is to break you down, right? They just want to get a clean slate where they can build you up to be like dialed for that mission specific, you know, whatever the job entails. So there's a lot of that. And, you know, the injury thing can really play into your psyche.
Yeah.
Yeah. And overcoming that's can be as much of a challenge as, you know, the physical fitness stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. The recovery. They say like the recovery road's like tough. I have some friends who've gotten like injured. Like a buddy of mine had I think he had knee surgery while he was in, and then he was trying to go to Ranger school, and he was like trying to get healthy because he wanted to go because he didn't want to be like a new guy anymore. And eventually, I think our platoon sergeant gave him like an ultimatum that like if you can ruck this and this amount of time, we'll send you. And he like did it, so he bounced back from that injury.
That's cool.
That's
cool.
what a lot of like. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
A lot of like when you're in, and it goes the same way. Like when you're prepping for like a deployment, you're doing this training cycle. You're getting like beat up and like working hours and like walking far and late nights, and it's all to prep you for that. So when you get overseas, you're like ready for it. But it's like the same kind of aspect. Like you're not really done working once you like pass the school or pass like the selection.
Yeah, it continues because you got to be mission ready, right?
Yeah.
What would you say, like, in your time, you know, in special forces? I mean, you know, some of the glamours, you know, getting to shoot cool stuff and using neat weapons and things like that. What was one of your favorite things, like your favorite kind of military toys that you got to play with?
Obviously, night vision is always really cool. I loved riding on like helicopters and like hanging when you're sitting on a Black Hawk. If you're riding in the door, you're literally sitting on the edge and your feet are just hanging off. And our pilots were so good. They call like flying map of the earth, where they're like flying like next to mountains and through canyons and all that. And you'll be like sideways, basically, just like if you're looking straight ahead, looking at the ground. That's like one of the really, if you don't like roller coasters, you won't enjoy it, but it's really cool. I love I did get to do my first deployment. It's called spies roping.
Okay.
It's when they hang a rope out of a helicopter and you're essentially in a harness clipped to the bottom of the rope, and then they fly you around. So you're like just hanging on a rope from a helicopter. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's cool.
Definitely a thrill there.
Yeah. Yeah. What was, when you're in the Middle East, were you there like summer months, you know, when it's like blazing hot? Were you guys there? Like, I heard Afghanistan can actually get pretty cold in the winter. What time of year you guys?
Afghanistan was pretty cold. We got there actually right after the snow had like melted. Like maybe a few weeks before we got there, it was like base was covered in snow, and then it warmed up. It would be cold at night, which is when you do like your missions and stuff. But during the day, it was pretty hot. And then near the end of the deployment, I think it had to have been like spring. It was like hot at night as well. Like you were sweating, flying around or being on target. And then in Iraq, I was there. It snowed once on my last deployment. Actually, on Christmas Eve, it snowed. And then after that, There was no snow. But same kind of deal. Cold at night and manageable during the day. You get away with wearing a t-shirt sometimes.
Nice. Well, as we like to ask sometimes on this show, you know, what does it mean to you to be like armed and ready? You know, if someone is looking at an opportunity to join the military and they want to get into special forces, and that's a track they want to pursue, you know, whether it's being a SEAL or a Ranger or Green Beret or, you know, whatever, what would you suggest to them as, you know, advice, good, tangible advice for them to pursue that and, you know, get to where they want to be?
I think it's have some, well, you don't know everything. So a lot of these go in and they're like, oh, I know like what it's like, or they're like, they think they've already made it. And I think you just need to be like humble, and they say, be like a gray man, but you gotta be a team player. But just like keep working like you haven't made it yet. I think that's a good way to do it, and build your like body and your mind and make yourself armed and ready. Like as much as like you need a gun to be like ready to go, like in your equipment to be go, like your body is your equipment. Like it's going to carry you through everything. So I think stay humble and prepare yourself physically as much as you can, and understand that like it's going to be hard, but make it to the next step. I think that's like a big part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, your body, think of your body as your equipment, right? And I think that's a good analogy, right? We always think about, guns and stuff like that, but they have to be clean. They got to be, they got to be dialed in so you can use it when you need it, right? But same thing with your body, right? Because you guys are out there hoofing it all the time and carrying weight and running and ducking and hiding and, all that stuff. So, great advice. Well, Jared, thanks, man. I want to just from all our audience to you, man, thank you so much for your service, first of all, and taking some time to be with us on the show today. We wish you all the best in school, and then what you guys work out with the modern Spartan and sets and that whole thing, man. I can tell you're passionate about it, and I'm excited for you. So keep us updated on the progress with that, and thanks again, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason.
All right, take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for checking out this week's episode. Please subscribe, click the link below, share with your friends. And hey, if you know a military person or a veteran with a great story to share, we would love to highlight them on the podcast and get their story out to everybody. Thanks so much.